meeting of the special meeting of the Public Site and Building Commission to order at 7:06. We don't have all the other usual stuff, and we don't have a flag, so we will not be disrespectful saluting nothing.
I have a little flag if you want it.
Nope, here's
I have
John.
a baby flag.
Okay. Hi, John. Oh, good. So
How's
let's begin
everybody
our
doing?
pledge. So join me with in the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance
To the flag
to
of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all. Thank you much. Okay, so in putting the agenda together, I put in not just, during our meeting last week, we were running very late and hadn't gotten to the additional or supplemental services requests and some other things. So we agreed we would meet tonight, and I decided to put in project update just in case there were things that we needed to address tonight that was either holding the project up or something we needed to make sure happened before we get into the other business. And I know there were two things that were being looked at and discussed through the week, and I don't know if we have, I know the boiler room floor was something that came up, and I didn't know whether, I know John Perna and a few others met, and I didn't know whether you had an update for us or anything that we need to know right now.
Yeah, we met, John and I and Bob Geminero. I was telling John, Jim Twitchell came out, and the kindness of the heart of Teresa, she was nice enough to cut a purchase order out of her operating budget, so we can get him on short notice. I do think, I don't know if we want to talk about it now, but I do think we should have a discussion about maybe securing somebody else, because it's going to be a long range approach. At least that's our feeling right now.
Mhm.
And it's going to take, over the course of years.
Mhm.
I think we got to treat it a little separate. That we would have maybe entertain calling Jim from Hygienics and getting a recommendation from 3 state contractors. This way we can engage sooner or later. The counts are really high. It's not anything, after seeing the mechanical room, I haven't been there in a while. It's not anything we're going to do before school starts. But I do want to mention one thing, because there's been some calls being made to New Canaan, and I want to clear something up. New Canaan did not get rid of all their PCBs. I worked on that total project. What they did was they sealed the floors and they scarified the walls enough to give the state happy, and then we had to put an epoxy sealant that has to be monitored. So we didn't get rid of them all. I don't know if that was mentioned. I don't mind, because we talked about the project, but I do want to clear it up that they did not get rid of them all. They got them to an acceptable level and then put this a special 2-part epoxy over it. We had to make special signs that no holes could be drilled, they can't be punctured. If you do have to make a hole or something, you have to do it under supervision of environmentalist, Hygienics or Time Bond or somebody. So that's that's the short story, if you want to call that short. I do think that this is going to be something that needs to be addressed because of the cost of coming up with whatever the plan is.
So we need more information. So it might be good, what you're saying now is in doing that initial survey that you were there for, there's more either cost information and some other information that needs to be gathered before we can start making some decisions on that.
Yeah, so one of the things is coming up with maybe some recommendations in the environmental company and letting the town know, like Bob made a good point that this will be going on a lot longer than probably all of us will be here. But we have to let the town know that. You know, it's, but I want to say again that New Canaan did not get rid of all their PCBs.
Okay.
It's a process that we followed back and forth with the state. I could give the woman's name that Kim Tisa was, she headed up. I don't know if she has the same position anymore. She was the person at the state that we were working with. But I think another thing was we don't know how far this report went. I'd like to see a copy of it for all of us on board, because this is a big thing. That would be environment, right, Geraldine?
John, Nancy,
Well,
just to add my 2
Geraldine-
cents.
Can Geraldine answer John's question?
Yeah, so we have a report from Enviromed as to the testing results for the paint on the floor, and it hasn't gone anywhere else other than to the town.
So that's an important thing. So that's why these are important things that we have to start getting it very early in the stage that we're in, and not let it get, blown out. We're not going to keep secrets, but we're not going to let it get blown out either. I would like that report emailed to myself and John and whoever else wants it. I'd like to see it.
Sure, I can do that. It's actually up on the shared drive as well, but I'll email it separately.
Thank you. Thanks.
Hey, John, I have a question. So
Sure.
what you're basically saying is this should be handled outside of the project? It should be a standalone project?
I don't know. It's going to be a blend. I'm going to say a blend if that could happen. I think the initial start of it is owed, us as the committee owe that to the project. And then at a certain point, then Terry and Bob Germanero have to put it in their budget.
Well, that's where I was going with that.
Yeah, it's going to have to be a blend. And I don't know the answer to that. All I can know is the principles of how I would treat it is get us to the point where we have a plan. That's a cost to the project. A year after that, it becomes part of your operating budget or maybe your long-term capital. That's up to you. But we don't even know what that is yet. We have to define that.
John,
Yeah.
John. Now, my understanding from Jim, as long as the town comes up with a actual written plan, it doesn't have to be done. I mean, the plan should be done sooner than later, but moving forward, this is something that can be dragged out for years.
Yeah.
Long as an accepted plan by the town, it doesn't have to be approved by the feds. It doesn't have to be approved by the state. It's something we have to have on record. Because talking to the gentleman from Rizzo, removing the material, the equipment in there, removing the floor, putting a new floor in, and reinstalling the equipment, right now, you're looking at upwards over $750,000. And there's absolutely no way we could even think about that.
No, John, I agree, but I think before it gets too far down the road as us as a committee, we should engage and retain somebody as soon as possible to kind of head the charge for us and come up with that plan.
Right, let them draw up a plan.
Define what, no disrespect to Rizzo, but they're not environmental.
Right.
But the environmental person to tell us, hey, listen, you got, you could, as long as you're addressing it and, you could be addressing it for 10 years. I do think the last note that I'll say is seeing what was on the floor, I do think that we should have Rizzo give us a price on a sealed epoxy.
I agree.
Epoxy that's rated, you know, for encapsulating purposes.
The closure, I'm not a closure, but a plan. I mean, again, if this was part of the building that's occupied by the students on a regular basis, that's a different story. But this is an area that it's visited by the custodial staff or the maintenance staff a couple times a day. And Bob, correct me if I'm wrong, for a short period of time. It's not an inhabited area, which, you know, so I think we have to look at this. We have to address it. Yes.
Yeah, but John, you know as well as I do, they base these rules on a 8-hour time weighted average.
Right, exactly.
So if someone's working in that space over an 8-hour period, what is their exposure? So in this particular room, there's no one working there at all. But
Right.
I think it still falls under that umbrella. So we got to be
Right,
careful
but
there.
That's, you got to understand, you're talking about a time weighted average, you're talking about an airborne concentration. Already the PCB is encapsulated in the cement. It's not an airborne product. And
Well-
if you put a sealer on the floor, it's not going anywhere unless
Right.
you actually disturb it.
But you also have moving equipment and vibration, and you have no airflow in that room. So that's
Yeah,
Part
but
of the problem.
it's encapsulated into the cement. It's not giving off vapors or.
now. Will this plan also encompass other areas within the building as well that we have to
No.
monitor?
That areas, whatever areas that were encompassed during the project that didn't require us doing anything, that's gonna have to be built into your operating plan. We can't tie that to the project. You know, if they didn't require us to address it and you have to monitor it, you know, I don't see it any different than
Radon.
schools do radon, you
Mm.
monitor lead in your water, you know, if you have a septic system, you monitor that, you know, so I don't see that as part of the project, but I do think we owe the project a defined plan from an environmental company and have them tell us what, you know, what our approach is.
Okay, so seems like there's not much that we can do right this minute, but at our next regular meeting, we were gonna have to look at making the next steps of coming up with some plans and approaches. Does that sum it up?
Yeah, I would ask, if maybe Geraldine could get us 3 names from Jim. She was there with Jim when we met Friday. 3 names that he knows that are on the state DAS. 'Cause that-
For the active for the abatement,
right,
yes. Because he said the one thing that we should have as part of that plan is a projected cost. which,
right.
You know, the abatement firm could do.
And what about a couple quotes for the epoxy?
So we have to ask Rizzo for that.
Yeah, well, I would run that under the project. We've already asked them to
Yeah.
provide a PCO for a coating for that floor. So we'll see what they come up with for the cost.
Okay, so then there's no action obviously needed from us right at this minute. We'll take it up further at our next regular meeting and move on. The only other thing I knew that was going to be some meetings happening were with the dirt pile / soccer field. And I didn't know whether there was anything specific on that we needed to look at or address tonight
I
before.
just have one more question for Geraldine.
Sure.
Can you, or do you have any recommendations on like a tie-in bond or Fuss and O'Neill that could come up with the plan? Is there anybody that you worked with that?
Well, yeah, Fuss and O'Neill is a good example. I mean, I would go back to the list of firms that we originally sent the RFP to for all of our testing and monitoring.
Right.
You know, obviously Hygienics would be on that list, and I would, you know, I'd throw Enviromed in there. I think that they've done a good job, and this would
But
be.
they have to be, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe this is more a question for Teresa, but they have to be on the DAS, otherwise we have to put it out for bid.
Yes, and I think they are. I mean, I think the 5 firms that we originally sent the RFP to.
Or- Okay, all right, I don't remember
I'll
that.
confirm that list changes, but yeah.
Yeah,
We'll identify 3+ firms that are on the state contract list and then, and send it and develop a specialty RFP just for this.
I actually have a quick question too for Carolyn. Do you think that we should have any signage in that room put up immediately? So this way here, other trades going in there, because you still have Ferguson working on the pipe racks overhead, and you still have the plumbers in there. We were working in there the day we were there.
Yeah, I'm not sure that that's necessary for the duration of this project, but I can ask for a recommendation from Enviromed on what might be posted for contractors that come into that space to do work after the Rizzo crew has gone. I mean, certainly all the subs that are in there right now know that not only, are there PCBs in the floor, but they all know that there's the potential for PCB in the wall paint. So they've all been the ones that are on the job now have all been very careful about how they mount things or penetrate the walls. So I think that they're all aware. But I think that it probably is a good idea on an ongoing basis so that new people that come into that space are aware.
Okay, good with that right now. So I don't know, Roy, if you have anything on the soccer field / dirt pile, or is that something that's still in the works?
Just a little bit on that. Talked with Richie. He talked with Eileen, and apparently the property on the east side, the town property line is very close there. So Eileen knew about that, and she's pulling some maps. But I think at this point we're ready to have. We should just inform Malone and McBroom to see if we can get them down and do a sit down with them to show them what we're looking to do. And then they have the mapping, so they'll just have to pull the mapping up from there and take it from there.
So since we approved the amount to do the work for creating a plan, so to speak, we approved that last week. Perkins Eastman needs an okay from us, like a notice to proceed, which I can do. I just wanted to make sure that we're still moving forward.
Yep.
That, you're meeting with Eileen and a few other meetings that happened this week didn't kind of come up with a situation where we have to put the brakes on with it.
No, I think we're okay, Nancy. It's just the question of we probably won't be able to go to the east. We'll have to be going to the north. Eileen was okay with that.
Okay.
So I think at this point, based upon those conversations, we're ready to proceed with Joe to see if we can get this moving.
Okay.
Hey, Roy, there wasn't any power company easements that we have to worry about, is there?
Well, we didn't get into that because I was actually surprised that the property line was that close on the east side. So Eileen seemed to know about that, but it doesn't seem like there's any other easements on there. It's just that the property line was close.
Okay.
But again, Bob, on that, as soon as apparently there's a survey on the entire site, so they just have to pull out the appropriate maps and put it together.
Okay.
Got it.
Or was there a
So
size that Eileen
is there-
indicated?
is there anything else that came up within the past week that we need to desperately deal with before we jump into what we really decided to meet on tonight? Carolyn, do you know of anything?
I don't know if all the commission members are aware of the harassment issue on Friday. I don't really have a lot of information on it, but I could throw up what I know.
Yeah, sure.
So on Friday morning, apparently, a young woman was jogging, running, went through the school complex and was subject to sexual harassment from a construction worker or a group of construction workers. And the girl was only 12 years old, went home, told her parents, and they went through her father at least went through sort of the chain of command all the way up to where the police department was supposed to send someone over there Monday to the job site to talk with and interview, the subs that were on the site during the incident. I know that the Rizzo team had a meeting specifically about the incident with all the foremans of all the subs that are on site. They've all been asked to obviously have a discussion with their crews, provide Rizzo with a copy of their sexual harassment policies. Rizzo emphasized to all the subcontractors that there's specific language within the contract that requires a certain level of behavior because we're on a school campus. And I think that they're at this point just sort of working through that process. I don't know what, if anything, is going to be the end point of this, whether they'll ever be able to identify who it was or what what exactly happened. But just folks should know that the police are on it and all of the town officials are aware of it. And the construction team is working through it.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
I had gotten an email yesterday from Matt Knickerbocker asking for contact info for Tony Rizzo because he didn't have that, and passed that along to him, and then heard back from Tony saying how disgusted he was by the whole situation, and they were jumping right into it. Question just for Geraldine is if they're able to find the individual and what company they work for, is this grounds for removal from the project?
Yes, actually and Rizzo has said that they will do that. If they can identify the people that were involved, they will be banned from campus and from working on the project.
And would that be just the individuals or would it be the contractor?
I guess probably, I don't know if that runs into some legal issues. My guess is that it would not be the entire company. But if they could, but it couldn't, I guess, raise to the level of foreman or somebody if they were on site and aware of what was going on.
Right. Okay. Okay. Does anybody else have any input on this specifically? We don't need to have a discussion about it, but thank you, Geraldine, for bringing it up and making everyone aware. Okay. So anything else that we need to know about that has to be dealt with before we meet again next week? Okay, now we can get into the basic meat, so to speak, of our agenda, a review of additional / supplemental services for both school projects. So as you're aware, and hopefully have read all of the stuff that I resent everyone, it's also in the Zoom documents and on the shared drive. So you've got lots of different places to be able to look for it. We've had 2 requests for additional / supplemental services, one from Perkins Eastman for each project, Johnson and Rockwell, and one from STV for Rockwell and Johnson. So I need some input, something from everyone, since, as I said, I've emailed everything out. We've had questions back and forth, and basically FOI laws stop us or keep us from being able to discuss this outside of a meeting, which includes in emails. So as I said, we've asked a lot of questions prior to this. We've gotten a lot of them answered. If there are more questions, need to bring them up now so we can move forward with this.
Nance?
John?
Yes.
Yeah.
Let me go first here. My position on this, the additional funds from Perkins Eastman, it may sound kind of cold and kind of blunt, but sometimes it has to be this way. When this project was started, we put out a request proposal for architectural firms. They came back. We interviewed various firms. Perkins Eastman gave us a great price. They had a great reputation for a lot of work they've done in schools. They provided a bid. We accepted their bid. They were awarded it. They presented a contract to the town. The town attorney and town leaders agreed upon the contract, signed it. And now all of a sudden they're saying, oh, we didn't bid enough. Basically, in a nutshell, We short bid the project. My feeling is that's not our problem anymore. We asked them to do some special work for us, and we paid for that special work that we requested without any hesitation. But the initial contract is their contract, not ours, their contract. And now they're saying they made a mistake. I don't see that to be our problem. I will not support the additional funding for them if it comes to it. That's my 2 cents.
Oh, thanks, John. I would like to say that in all of in the initial proposal, our questions to them, and another several page document with their reply, there was never a place where they said they made a mistake. They have, Perkins Eastman has put out, especially in answer to our questions, a number of details on things that have happened through the course of the project. And I can summarize, basically, there was an extended period of pre-construction. There were several items that came up that needed their attention, and some, I wouldn't call it redesign, but putting information in. The main one that comes to mind immediately is the bump outs at Rockwell, when those were found to be kind of fallen off the building. So there's things like that that have come up in the project, as we know, through many change orders that we've had to approve, some of them small, some of them larger, of things that I wouldn't put out as an error or omission or something left off, but something that had to be either clarified or that had to be redone because of existing conditions that we didn't know about when the project started. And to me, it seems like there's more of those at Rockwell, yet being a, quote, smaller project, so to speak, the amount that they've requested for Rockwell is obviously smaller than what they've asked for Johnson. And the spreadsheet that they gave us last week, the end of the week before the last meeting, I had asked some questions about that during our last meeting, asking whether those amounts were projected or whether they were actual. And I did send along the email response that Joe Collada had given me, that spreadsheet puts in actual time spent to date. So it's time spent from March, April, May, June, I'm assuming just to June. And I can ask that question of either Joe Collada or Joe Costa, if I'm correct on this. That spreadsheet, which has both schools on it and numbers of hours, and then the amount that they can come up with is basically based on a aggregate average salary amount times all the hours. And so then the question that I had asked too was the two amounts in the spreadsheet were the actual amounts that they had asked for in their initial proposal. So for Johnson, it was 184, 800, and then for Rockwell, it was 123. So the other question I had asked, they had initially said amount not to exceed. So from what I'm remembering with applications for payment from Perkins Eastman, their percentage requests have been still going along through the contract amount. These amounts are additional. So if we're to approve any amount of money, this or any other amount, are there, so two questions for Joe and Joe. Just to clarify, will there be, if these amounts that are on the spreadsheet that you gave us are actual amounts for March, April, May, June, are there going to be other amounts for July going forward?
Nancy, this is Joe Collada. So the amounts in the spreadsheet are the hours that we spent above basic services from February of 2019 to March of 2020. So those are not the hours that we've spent since March of this year. Those are the hours that put us over our contracted amount.
Okay, so that's going back to 2019. So that's,
Right. So this was the explanation of the tasks that we did that were outside of our basic services and the hours that were spent on those tasks.
and that was something that we had asked for, just to clarify for everyone.
Yes.
That was something we had asked for. So those amounts then are amounts that you are saying that you want to recoup for time already spent.
Yes.
And in going forward from now, July through the end of the project, are there going to be other amounts? Or is that already figured into what we still owe you?
I believe that the additional service request would bring us through to the end of construction administration services on an hourly basis, not to exceed.
Yeah, that's correct. This is Joe Costa speaking. Nancy, what's interesting about it is we did a little analysis of how much time we've spent since March through June. We've just got our June numbers just a couple of days ago. And whereas for Rockwell, we were expecting to spend about $10,400 per month. We actually spent in March about $5,300. In April, May, and June, we spent between $7,000 and $9,000 per month. So it's actually less than what we anticipated spending at Rockwell. In Johnson, we were expecting expenditures of about $17,400. In the month of March and April, it was just under $12,000 per month. And in May, it was under 11,000, and June jumped up to just above 13,000. So that project also is tracking below the anticipated expenditure, which tells us, and I hate to use this metaphor because I know we hear it over and over in the news, our curve is actually flattening out as we anticipated it would. So that's actually very good news. So the point of this is that this 184 and 123 request is probably never going to be reached because of where we are in the project and what the expenditures are actually showing as we move closer to the end of the job.
So then, Joe, in your initial proposal to us, and then an update, and then another update, you were tracking along, kind of looking at, I guess, last winter through the spring and seeing a rise in the need for your services and those creating over expenditures on your part. And now we're kind of evening out with the need for your services being more along the lines of what you had originally anticipated in the bid that you had put together for us.
Yeah, that's in a nutshell, that's correct. And, it's encouraging to see that slope actually flattening out as we're getting close to the end of the job. Now, as with any construction job, we expect a little bump at the end as we're doing inspections and cleaning up the punch list and, working through the, TCO and all that kind of stuff. But it's a very positive trend, and it's good data. It's 4 months. There's been a lot of work done since March. There's been a lot of discussions, but it never has been at the level that we were expecting. That we were actually seeing in our timesheets, months and months ago. So it's actually very good news for everybody.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think something too that we need to bring up in that. A couple things that were brought up in the proposal and actually in the response to our bunch of questions that I wrote out a few months ago. In putting together the bid that we accepted from Perkins Eastman on both projects, there were a number of, as I said, unknown factors that came up, not just on the projects, but yet here we are several years later from the time that we accepted the bid with some different phasing and schedules in place than what were in place when we got started, when Perkins Eastman first got started, before we even hired a construction manager and before we hired owner's rep. So, and again, again, I can't put numbers to all of that, but just some things to take into consideration. So can I get other input from other people, please? Dave Olson, I see with their hand up. Go ahead, Dave.
Joe, that was helpful information, and I guess I'd suggest that you kind of try to do an updated EAC, estimate at completion, for the project, and where you might think that there might be some reductions in that that would be allowable or possible. Because those numbers that you just told us about for March, April, May, June were pretty substantial reductions from what's in your request to us from several months ago.
Yes, sure, Dave, we can do that. I just want to remind the committee that the proposal was an hourly not to exceed. So, so for example, if our proposal was actually approved back in March, you would be seeing those invoices and those amounts that I just quoted. So we can predict or we can track, you know, estimate at completion, and we can send that over to you and have you guys look at it. But, you know, certainly the proposal is an hourly rate not to exceed. So, you know, what we spend is what you would pay, and we would detail the actual tasks that we would perform, you know, through our services on both jobs.
So how far from the end are we with your portion of this job?
Well, Joe Collada, can you talk about the proposed schedule completions, because you're familiar with it?
Yeah, I believe Rockwell, the building is scheduled to be complete for August, or end of August, with a lot of site work still to be done September, October, and into November. And then Johnson, I think the bulk of the building is scheduled to be done by the end of August, and there's still portions of the building that run into September and October, plus all the site work that still needs to be done there.
Okay, that's August next month.
Yeah.
I think that's next week.
I think those are,
Both next week and next month, right?
I think those are timeframes that have been put out with the most recent schedule, yet I'm not sure if we're on that schedule right now. I think that at least what I know for Johnson is there's portions like the vestibule that aren't going to be done when school opens, and so that actual building part is not going to be completed.
Right.
The big push, obviously, is to get classroom space and anything that's needed for start of school complete enough for staff and students to occupy. And the rest of the spaces will be continue to be worked on somehow.
Include all the life safety as well.
Well, all the life safety stuff has to be up and running, and I'm sure we're going to hear more about that next week, because I think there's new guidelines being put in place for certain parts of that life safety that we're going to hear a lot more about. Not tonight.
You mean related to COVID, Nancy?
Partly related to COVID, but also having life safety up and running in general. Like Bob, I think Bob, what Bob meant initially was having life safety up and running for start of school. But then there's some additional more with HVAC and a few other things that are going to have to be put in place because of COVID for the opening of school. So it's a combination.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
sure Dr. Carver has her hands full right now with that,
Yeah.
that reopening plan. And there's no clear answer, and every single district and every school that we talk to has a different approach and a different aspect on that. And there's no easy answers.
Part of the reason why Dr. Carver's not here tonight. I think she's
Yeah.
got a parent meeting, so.
Mhm.
So, anyone else? Can I
Hey,
get,
I have some comments, Nancy.
sure, Roy, please go ahead.
I appreciate the time that Perkins and Eastman spent, re-looking at this. So there was, a lot of efforts that's been taken. But kind of going back to what John was saying, some of the things that upset me, on this proposal, and I talked about it before, was kind of the timing of it, how it came up. And also, we picked Perkins Eastman because of their expertise. They knew that this is a, renovate as new project. And everyone knows it's a challenging project, and Perkins and Eastman really represented themselves as, be able to do that. And since they had background in that, so there's a lot of reasons why we picked them. So, I just have a lot of questions, and I especially have a lot of questions to even look at it regarding Rockwell School based upon where we are budget-wise on that school. I would like to make a recommendation that we talk about it in executive session because I think there's some things here that are very worthwhile discussion. I think, the amount of extra time that Perkins and Eastman has to go back for multiple times where clearly it was outside their scope. I can understand those, but as a global issue, I'm not really for, a blanket, we're okay with this. So, and kind of based upon that, I'd personally like to sit down with our group in an executive session to kind of just to bat things around as the total of where it is. Some things are fine, some things aren't. And I think there's a lot of different ideas that we all have going and what we think the project should be. So that would be.
So, as far as executive session goes, we did that
Yeah.
once already, and I was somewhat chastised for allowing that to happen.
Oh,
Because executive session, this is not a reason for executive session. We can't have executive session just because we don't want other people to hear what we're going to have to say about them.
yeah.
So a contract negotiation would be executive session. This is not
Okay.
a contract negotiation. It's a discussion of a proposal that we all feel uncomfortable about.
But it might turn into contractual items.
Well, it does change the contract, yes. However, again, we did this, we had that one meeting where we went into executive session. We didn't have enough information to make a decision. So we didn't make a decision.
Right.
And I was told that the reason that we went into executive session wasn't a good reason to go into executive session. Just I'm putting that out there.
Okay, and I'm just going to try to help out in this because I think the amount of information that you've requested, Nancy, at this point, we do have all the information now.
Right.
So I feel quite comfortable in looking at it in an executive session so that, the entire group could bat it around to get a feeling for what it is. Again, I think there's a lot of possibilities here. And, I think it's going to take more than, a blanket, we agree or we don't agree.
So are you saying, well, you're saying that
I mean,
might be more of a, I don't know how I want to explain it. Like rather than say yes on this amount, yes on that amount,
yeah.
that there might
I
be.
mean, even based upon the conversations tonight with Joe Colada, as far as, not knowing that or, their comfort level and that they're not spending that amount. Well, maybe we should just wait till the end of the project and give us a total bill, then we'll look at it. There's a lot of ways of looking at this. So, I personally did not want to even, start that conversation, but there's a lot of things on my mind that I think are open for discussion. And I think we do have a lot of information now. I think we have all the pertinent information that we need. And then, I just think it's going to take some additional time.
So,
Discuss.
right, so do you have, you said you had a lot of questions on your mind, Roy. Are there questions very specific to
No,
the proposals or the amount
No.
or anything that
no,
Joe Lotter or Joe?
yeah,
it's
that's
more
not,
us-
no, I don't need to have anything answered, Nancy. That's the
Oh,
thing. Is that
got it.
I'm quite comfortable. In fact, I'm very comfortable. I think that Perkins and Eastman did a fabulous job as far as documenting, everything that they needed. So I don't have questions regarding that. So,
Right,
or STV. I'm comfortable with their answers to where we are.
Mhm.
Yeah. And the reasons. But, contractually, I think it just opens up a whole can of worms here.
can of worms, like, well, yeah, okay, yeah. Well, I do also appreciate the amount of time that Perkins Eastman put into putting the information together for us. I don't feel that, I'm not against approving an additional amount. I'm just not, I was thinking about how to go about doing it. Could we do it 3 months at a time? Could we do it, look at the different amounts? I'm just not sure how to approach it specifically, because it does create it's not an additional contract. It's not a new contract. It's an amount added to the existing contract, is my understanding.
Nancy, would it help if we submitted what was spent in the last 4 months per job? Would that help with your analysis?
I would say it would, what you were just saying, the figures that you were just saying, because I guess I was misunderstanding the spreadsheet that you initially gave us and the answers that I got from Joe Collada. And I thought that the spreadsheet that you had given us was for this past March, April, May, June, which looked like a lot of money for just that short time.
Yeah, no,
So
that's
makes
not
a
what it
whole-
was.
yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So that makes a whole lot more sense. So if we can then have March, April, May, June 2020 to look at in comparison, I suppose that could help us make a more comfortable decision. I would say informed and comfortable decision.
Okay, I can have Joe Collada send that to you through an email tomorrow, if that's okay.
Sure. So can we do that? Dave Olson?
Yes, and then the only missing piece is what does it take to get from there to the end?
Mhm.
So I think it would be beneficial to us if we had Perkins and Eastman's opinion about that.
Yep, we can make an estimate on that as well.
Okay.
Because there's still an amount that we owe you from today, or from the invoice that I got in my mailbox the other day, which I think is an application for payment for June, I think. So those amounts are still going along as percentages. I believe Joe Collada did say that those are still amounts that are going along as percentages of the contract amount. Correct.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes, we're invoicing behind the time we've actually spent.
Right. So the invoices are for through end of June 2020 for each project, for the school projects plus for FF&E. So we're going to get that information. Again, I personally don't feel, in looking at everything that we've been given by Perkins Eastman, it's quite a bit of information, don't feel totally opposed. I know John has said he is, and others haven't put in a specific opinion yet, but we may not need to if we're going to get some more information. I'd like to, get that information and then see what we can do about it as soon as we can, so that we're not in a kind of on and on and on and on, not doing anything about it situation.
Hey, Nancy, is it worthwhile to assemble a subcommittee versus going into executive session? Would that help it out some, or
Well,
is it-
we could do that. I mean, we could also go into executive session and get slapped on the wrist after. We can't, so and as you know, because we did it years ago, we made the decision in executive session and had to redo it because we didn't do the executive session right. That was a few projects ago. But I think doing something like a subcommittee could help, because then you would hammer out all that information and hopefully come up with some proposals for us. So how do people feel about that? Any input on that? We're going to get some more information from Perkins Eastman. Roy, would you want to be a part of that?
I'd be happy to be part of it.
Does anybody else want to work with Roy on that?
I will,
Is that John Perna?
yes.
Okay.
And then Dave Olson, you want to do that too?
Yeah.
Okay. And then if, depending on when you choose to get together, if I'm available, I will.
Okay.
If I can't, because it's getting to be near the primary, I won't. So we're getting some info from Perkins Eastman. It'll probably come to me and I'll pass it along to everyone else. And I would like to see us hopefully get that information together really soon. So again, we don't have to keep having meetings like we did last time and go till midnight. Oh, we can't go till midnight. Kathy cuts us off at 11.
Good thing.
Oh, it's up to Kathy?
Well, actually, when she sets up the meeting, she has to put into the Zoom thing an end time. You can't have open-ended meetings.
Maybe we could
So-
get her to put in.
And I
9.
put 4 hours. That's it. 4. Done.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. We haven't gotten to 4 hours yet, and I hope we don't.
No, but we've been close, really,
I know.
really close.
We have been. So from Perkins Eastman, we're getting that, those figures that Joe Costa had mentioned of where we, where we were with both, with the 4 months, March, April, May, June, and then some projections for going forward into the end of the project, which we know is not going to be August.
Mhm. And when do you think you want us to contact the subcommittee to have a more lengthy, detailed discussion, Nancy?
Well, I think we need to get that information together. And then subcommittee, are you going to meet first and then if you need to hash it out with Perkins Eastman, we'll do that another time?
Yeah, I think we need to meet first. I don't think we need a lot more information. So
Okay.
I think the committee just has to get together and get their act together.
Okay,
Good.
so all right, whenever you're ready, just let us know and we can have another Zoom call with you guys.
Yep.
Okay.
And then
All right.
we'll look for the info from you and pass it along,
Mhm.
and everybody will study it in great depth.
Thank you.
So do we have any other, some people haven't said anything. They've just been intently listening. Can I get input from others that can help us know where to go with this? Any input with anybody else? Nope. Okay. Well, so that's not the only proposal we have. We have another one. So we have one from STV. And I know we had a few questions that were asked and answered on that proposal. And can I get some input from people on that? Trying to
I thought the
find-
Board of Ed was paying for that one.
What's that, John?
I thought the Board of Ed was paying for that one.
Oh, Terry just fell over.
Terry yeah, that's why she left.
So similarly, the proposal from STV has information on the couple of different, much more specific situations where there were, and again with a spreadsheet showing projected or protracted pre-construction and the move management. And I've been searching through notes and I haven't found anything specific, but I do remember distinctly having conversations not only during our interview process with STV, but also during talks with Rizzo about move management, Rizzo had some special person on board who was going to handle that. The initial input from Board of Ed was that the teachers would want to pack their own classrooms but not move things, obviously. It wasn't going to be up to the Board of Ed or any of the staff to do that moving, and that Rizzo had somebody on board who was part of the team who would do the move management. They did all the move management at Danbury High School, et cetera, et cetera. So we specifically said we didn't need that from STV, and it was taken out of their proposal. Yet they ended up doing all the move management, and they're going to be doing more. But not only doing the move management, but we ended up with more move management than we thought we were going to have in the beginning anyways, because of partly change in phasing, some COVID, and a few other things. So that is very specific, and I'm, again, an amount not to exceed, which is on that spreadsheet. And just a question, amount not to exceed, and Geraldine, you're still in a place where you feel that those amounts, you're comfortable with those amounts and they're not going to be increased.
Yes, I mean, that's our commitment. That's our not to exceed. That's our projection on what it's going to take to finish the moves. We have, at least the folks that are working on that part of it for us, have a lot of experience in it. That's the fee we're going to hold to. If it's more, you know, we'll take care of that. And we made a decision not to try and increase any other fees across the board because we want to take responsibility for the work that we originally accepted under the RFP process. I think that there's a lot of validity to a number of the areas that Perkins Eastman has outlined as requiring more work, either based on changes in the project or the team that we happen to have been blessed with. But we're going to go with that, and we're really only asking for additional fee on clearly identified additional services that were not included in our contract.
Hey,
So-
Nance,
Yep, go ahead, John.
I unfortunately, I left the information at work. What was the requested amounts from Rockwell and Johnson from STV? I apologize. I left it at work.
So the total amount not to exceed for Rockwell was $56,226. Did I get that right?
Yep.
Yep. And the amount for Johnson not to exceed was $69,523. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Okay.
And also, I may add, when as you're saying, when we first looked at STV and others, we awarded the job to STV, we did cut their proposal number down. That's something that we did.
Yes.
And we said we can always go back and look at it and see where we're at.
Right.
So, you know, in all fairness to them, that's something that we cut originally.
Yes.
So I just want to add that in there.
Yep. And on the spreadsheets that we were given, it's very specific into, you know, the amounts that that are attached to the extended pre-construction and the move management. The move management being basically the largest part.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other input from anyone? Dave Olson.
Yes, I think we're pretty fortunate to have had STD on this program
Mhm.
because from the sense of our meetings as we go along, there seems to me that there could have been many more problems unresolved that had to come to our committee. And Geraldine's done a great job of sorting those things out for us, telling us what the demand for additional money was appropriate and when it wasn't. And I'm not sure that everyone would have been able to do that as effectively.
Thank you.
Okay. I agree. Thanks, Dave.
I'm in
Anything
favor
else?
of this change order.
Well, if anybody wants to make an emotion at any time, they can.
Making a motion that we approve it, both of them?
Second.
Be a little more, well, make it a little more specific, Kathy. Proposal, yeah, she will. Dave has a second.
I'll embellish.
So we've already been discussing, but do we have more discussion now that we have a motion and a second? I just want to say it actually was easier. It's a smaller amount, but in a smaller time frame. Easier to make the decision with the amount of information that you gave us initially, and we didn't need much more. And I appreciate putting all that together. Anything else from anyone else?
It's also nice to have a not to exceed commitment from STD, which in essence makes that a fixed price number.
Yeah.
Or it is a not to exceed, it can be less,
Yes,
but it can't
Yep.
be more.
but it can't be more, no. Any more with this? Ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Does anybody vote no? 'Cause that makes it easier. Okay, so passes unanimously. And I don't know what we need to do to make that change. We have to do some kind of paperwork, you know.
Yeah, I need to turn that proposal into an actual contract amendment with signatory lines. And so I will do that to, and forward to Matt and probably to Marty and we'll wait for the minutes of this meeting to back that up and then I'll just administratively take care of it.
Yeah, okay. And again, I think that with the little bit of, it's not really a little bit, but with the extra information we've asked from Perkins Eastman, I think we can be in a position to make a better judgment on their proposal soon. Because it seems like a little incomplete still, so we'll get that. And like I said, as soon as I get that from Perkins Eastman, I'll pass it along to all of you, and we can see about getting that subcommittee together ASAP to come up with, you know, if people have ideas of a different way of doing, again, as I said, I'm not opposed to, there's obvious additional costs that are being expended by Perkins Eastman. Very obvious. And if people have other ideas of how to go about, you know, rather than, and their amount is yes and not to exceed, but it goes back a much further and is less, or was less specific. Now we're getting more specific information. Any more input for Perkins Eastman of anything you're thinking now that we need from them, or what we get in the two items that we asked for will be enough to get us where we need to be to make a decision?
Roy, I think we're in a position on the information that we have and the new information that we're gonna get, that'll be enough to make a decision. Do you agree?
Yeah, Roy's muted. He's saying yes, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, the new information I think will help a lot too. Even if it's something, you know, one idea I had was, as I said before, maybe doing it a little more like 3 months at a time, or looking at 3 months and saying, okay, we approve that amount, looking at another 3 months, approve that amount. There's a lot of different ways of doing it. So.
Well, Roy, I don't know if, I'm on vacation next week, but
Yeah.
I'm available Thursday night, or you want to wait until Nancy gets the information?
Yeah, let's wait, because I'm on vacation end of this week and through maybe Tuesday of next week.
Okay.
So Joe said he was going to send me something
I'm
tomorrow.
not on vacation at all.
You're not on vacation at all? Okay. Maybe we'll change the subcommittee. Joe said he was going to send information tomorrow, so I'll get
Yes.
that out to you guys as soon as possible, and then we'll see about getting people together ASAP. We're not allowed to take vacation because we're not allowed to go anywhere.
That's right.
Nancy, you have a question? Is
Uh,
Perkins going to give us a punch list at some point?
That's a good question, Joe Colada.
Yes, we will be punch listing the building. I guess when it's substantially complete, and Rizzo let us know that it's substantially complete, and then we'll be doing the punch list.
Well, that's part of my heartburn. I think we should be getting ongoing so we can kind of monitor that as well. I did that dance before in 2010 with the high school. And then at the last day, I got a multi-page book where I
Right.
could have kind of intervened throughout the project. So
Right,
I prefer something.
and generally we request a completion list from the construction manager so that we're not doing their job for them, because they manage the construction.
So I know that's something that Bob had brought up in the past of wanting a punch list because he didn't want to wait till the day before school. You know, and I know that with other projects, the punch list comes near substantial completion, but we had different sort of phases of substantial completion. So if we're trying to get school open and we're trying to get a TCO and there's punch list items, you know, I don't know, Bob, is this something that could be, have you brought it up in OAC meetings yet?
Once in a while, it'll come up, especially around when we talk about commissioning and things of that nature.
It is complicated by the fact that we've abandoned all phases at this point. So at this point, both the commissioning and the punch list, what's left of it, you know, everything other than that initial phase at each building is inevitably going to happen all together as one document. We can, at Johnson, there's the possibility that the second floor might be completed enough ahead of the first floor in order to punch list that separately, but that would be about it.
Well, I'll give you, for instance, like the countertops.
So
you know,
is it possible then, rather than, you know, I guess when we think of punch list, we all think of the end of the job, and then you get a page or you get a couple pages depending on the size of the job. Could we maybe call it a little something different, like intermediary punch list, so that if Bob is seeing things and other people are seeing things that need to be completed to have everything ready for school to open on whatever day school's going to open,
or at least answers on some of this stuff, so we can at least monitor the timeline, or when Dr. Carver asks, when is this ceiling going to be closed up, or when is this color change going to happen, or when's these countertops coming in? At least there's some answers to give her.
Yes, because, yes, I agree with that. And there actually will be some multiple punch lists, because we're going to have a major punch list effort in association with Chris Baldwin and Tom Galliford's work to get a TCO out. But we also know that parts of the building are still going to be under construction, and they won't be punch listed until the end of September and the end of October. So I guess I misspoke slightly. There will be different punch lists, and the big focus will be on the one that allows us to occupy the building on August 29th.
Okay.
So much like we're planning ahead on the commissioning by now meeting every week with those trades, we need to have the same effort on the whole building to make sure that the punch list identification work is done in enough time to actually make those corrections prior to August 29th. So we'll start that day after tomorrow.
Right. I mean, like, I'll give you for another instance is the final clean for Johnson. I mean, we have a finished space over there that it looks like a dust storm blew in there. So that's going to be a real struggle for both my people and their people for the start of school. These are things that need to stay on our radar continuously. They may be small in scope, but they're really problematic when it comes time to occupy those spaces.
That's true. So
Yes, we've indicated that in our field reports over the last 2 months.
Yes, you did, Joe. Thank you.
And if I guess, like for Rockwell, if the second floor is substantially complete and Rizzo's saying that it's substantially complete, we could punch list that and kind of do a rolling punch list by section of the building if it's substantially complete.
Maybe a school opening punch list is something we need.
say that again? But I didn't quite hear.
A school opening punch list.
Yeah,
What do we
Okay.
need to have done for school to open?
right, right. And I think if people see things, if Bob, you see something, if, I don't know, could there be a central list somewhere, which would have to go through Rizzo, because as Joe said, they're really the ones that should be creating a punch list, yet they don't create it in a vacuum. I think they need input from anybody who's seeing things. It could be the trades, it could be you, whoever's on a job site seeing, you know, what needs to be done.
Mhm.
And, you know, if Dr. Carver asks questions, then maybe that becomes part of that punch list.
At least, like I said before, at least establish some form of timeline that
Right.
this particular item, you know, the caulking in the stairwell where the two building seams come together, it's still open. You know, this is, okay, that's going to be taken care of X date. All right,
Yeah.
fine. Then we know, all right?
Right. So there,
Items like that.
right. So it could be a spreadsheet that has some kind of, you know, what the item is, when somebody gets a date, when it's going to be addressed, when it's completed.
It just makes the process clean later on, that's all.
Right. Right. And so if you have one, you know, you have one and somebody else has one and they don't all fall through the cracks. They're kept in a central place. So maybe that could be set up with Rizzo somehow with Ken, or whether they go through the site supers and then a main list with Ken, just come up with some sort of a procedure to go through so it's consistent.
Okay. All right, thank you, appreciate that.
Well, yeah, and I'm glad you asked again, because I know you've asked before and we don't want it to be like you're not being heard, so.
Okay.
Before we finish up, anybody have anything else specific? The only thing I'm gonna say, you know, John Perna mentioned being on vacation, Roy mentioned being on vacation. So if we can get that subcommittee going soon, that would be good. And then if we have to wait a bit, and we don't want to wait too much longer. Kathy put it out there that she's on vacation at the end of August, I think. So we have one more regular meeting in July, which is next Tuesday. Okay. And whatever, that's the 28th, I think. Get my calendar. Yes. And then as we go into August, Kathy's on vacation August 25.
Yeah.
And I believe she's saying that she doesn't have anybody to cover for her to do minutes. Is that, which?
Right, yeah.
So, and could one of us do the minutes, or is that like, does it have to be one of you official kind of?
No, I think somebody else could do them. It's just, you know,
Right. And then, so the other thing we have to think about, we don't have to decide tonight. I just want you to know. So our first meeting in August is August 11th. I will not be available as I will be running the primary. Wearing, I don't know, a face shield and a mask and a plastic suit and whatever else I have to wear. Keep people from spitting on me. So that's
you
August
could do a
11th.
special.
What's that?
You
So-
could do a special in
We
there,
could do it.
you know.
So we have to find out in the next week or two through Geraldine and with, you know, input from Rizzo and Perkins Eastman, the August or the July 28 meeting, do we need to meet, could we meet on August 4th, or could we meet on the 18th and have one meeting in August to take care of what we need to take care of and keep things moving forward and get schools open? Or do we need two meetings? Would we need, you know, do them on two different Tuesdays, August 4th and then the 18th? So maybe we could look at that and see, like I said, we don't make a decision tonight. But we need
We do
to,
have to make a decision about the 25th because I'd be sending out an agenda. I was actually going to send it to you guys tomorrow. So you'd need to hold that or cancel it.
August 25th?
25th, yeah.
That's like a month away, more than a month away.
Well,
On vacation.
oh, sorry, 28th, sorry.
Next week, we're gonna meet. That's,
Okay.
you're here for that meeting, right?
Yeah, but I wasn't sure you were saying,
No, I'm just saying that's our meeting. Our next meeting, our next regular meeting is July 28th. We're good with that.
but you were mentioning the August 4th. So that's where I was like, then you would literally, like if you did one on August 4th, then you would, if you went now the 21st and you did another one on August 4th, you'd
No,
The-
we're not canceling the 28th. We're doing a meeting
Okay.
on the 28th. That's our regular meeting. We'll do invoices and an application for payment and all that stuff. So on July 28th, next Tuesday, we have a meeting.
Okay. I'll send
That's business as usual. It's all the 2 August dates, 11 and 25, when I'm not available and you're not available. So because I'm not available doesn't mean you can't meet. You can have a meeting, and I don't know, last time Roy ran the meeting when I had the referendum, you got done in record time. So, you know, John could run the meeting. And again, we don't have to decide that tonight. We can talk about it next week at our regular meeting and make some plans as to how we're going to meet in August. David Olson.
I think we need to meet at the end of August, whatever the day is. It's just before school opens.
Yes,
Right.
yes. And we may even need to meet somewhere in August earlier too, if there's decisions that need to be made by us to keep things moving along
Yeah.
so that school can open. So just to keep it, it's more just keep it in mind. We're not making any decisions about it tonight. Good? Hi, Rich.
You
Rich just
adjourn?
joined us. John made a motion to adjourn. Dave
Second.
seconded. Bye, Rich.
All in favor?
We'll talk. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. We're looking
Thank
for
you.
info and we'll be passing it along. Good night, everybody.
Night, everyone.
Night.
Thank you.